Aren't they? Well, welcome to the show. Good to have you here. I thought we might just start with a basic. I think you're now under a UK passport for Hyrox. You live in Australia. You played rugby for Luxembourg. I heard. I think everyone subconsciously assumed you were from New Zealand as well because your surname. So tell us about that. Where are you from? Where did you grow up? What's your nationality?
Yeah, yeah, I can understand that it might be a bit confusing to some people, but so born in London, my mum's English, my dad is Dutch, hence the Van Zeeland. Um, yeah, basically grew up my whole life in Luxembourg. So from the ages of 2 to about 18, I lived in Luxembourg, and then I suppose I went to the UK for my bachelor's degree. Lived in Cardiff for about 3 years, so there's actually a few words that still have a bit of a Welsh twang, which is a bit annoying. Some people, when they meet me for the first time, they actually think I'm Welsh, which doesn't help my case whatsoever. And then, after my bachelor's, I actually moved to Melbourne to do my master's, and then, yeah, just been in Australia for, like, the last 4 or 5 years now. Moved from Melbourne to Perth at the start of this year, so, yeah, been in Perth for, just under a year now. So, yeah, it's been great. I love Australia. Um, Consider this to be home for now, as long as I can stay on a decent visa. They tried to kick me out, but I managed to weasel my way back in. So, yeah, Australia's home for now.
Okay. What took you to Australia in the first place? Why there?
Oh, just so Luxembourg's a very small, sheltered country. And growing up, I was obsessed with rugby. And a couple of the powerhouses when I was growing up were New Zealand and Australia. And my uncle actually was a huge Australian rugby fan, and he used to take me to watch these. We used to get up pretty early and watch like the Bledisloe Cup, which is Australia against New Zealand, or the Tri Nations as well. Which is like Australia, New Zealand, South Africa playing rugby against each other. And he was just obsessed with Australia, and he built up this image of Australia in my mind. And I think when I was pretty young, I always knew that I wanted to live there at some point. Um, and then, yeah, once uni wrapped up in the UK, I mean, I could have gone there. I could have gone to Australia for my masters, but being 18, it just seemed like quite a far, bit of a ways away from my parents at 18 years old. So I thought I'd stay a little bit more local. And then once I did my bachelor's, I was like, okay, maybe I can push the boat out a little bit. I considered New Zealand, I considered America as well, and Australia. But then I visited Australia one summer, and I just absolutely loved it. Like Melbourne actually was the first city that I flew into, and I was just amazed by it, and I just felt connected to it straight away, and I knew that, oh, this is the place for me. And yeah, so I've been in Australia for 4 or 5 years now, and haven't looked back.
Awesome, love it. You've got a rugby background, like that's what you were doing from a young age, is it? And then ultimately you got to the stage where you played for Luxembourg, is that right?
Yeah, so my dad was obsessed with rugby. He took me down. I suppose I should preface, like, in Luxembourg, they don't really care about sport too much. Like, sport isn't ingrained in schools like it is in the UK or Australia. So it's all done by clubs, by local clubs. And because Luxembourg is so small, and we only had one rugby club in the whole country, so I ended up going to the Rugby Club Luxembourg from a very young age. I think I was about 4 or 5 years old. My dad took me down, and we didn't really have an under fives or anything like that, so I had to play in the 2 years above me, running around with, like, 7, 9-year-olds, which was pretty intimidating at the time, and I honestly hated rugby to start off with because I was just getting trampled by these bigger lads. But yeah, eventually came around and started enjoying it a lot more, and then just stuck at that for the better part of, like, 20 years. Dabbled in a few different sports here and there, but rugby was always my big passion. From about, like, I suppose once you get to about the age of 16, 15 or 16, then you can get selected for the under 16s for Luxembourg. Then you just play against some, like, regional teams around, like, Germany and Belgium. You play against, like, some selections there. And then once you get past the under 16s, then you move to the under 18s and under 20s, where then you can play in the European Championships, where you get to travel a little bit further out. So for me, for the under 18s, I had the opportunity to travel to Toulouse for my first year and Lisbon in Portugal for my second year. So that was a really cool experience because you also get to see the likes of like they weren't in the same division as us, but they were playing in the same competition. So you essentially had the Six Nations in the division above us. So you had all the under 18s teams for France, England, Ireland, Wales, and you got to see the talent that was now essentially playing for the England team. Um, and then yeah, under 20s we played in Czech Republic. It was slightly less professional. We didn't have this the Six Nations teams there, but just some great memories there. As you can imagine, some 20-year-olds running around Prague was a great time after a rugby tournament.
Nice, nice, amazing. Have you seen my podcast episode with Sam Warburton?
Yeah, I did. That was a good one. I'm a big fan of Sam Morgan actually. He was a big inspiration of mine when I was playing rugby. I read his book and yeah, he's always been a big inspiration of mine. Yeah.
I can imagine, especially going to uni at Cardiff. He must be an absolute legend over there, right?
Yeah, I never actually saw him, but I have definitely seen his brother a few times out and about, and I think they might be twins. I'm not sure, but they look very similar.
Okay.
Yeah, no, big fan of Sam Warburton.
Do you feel like, I mean, maybe this is a tough question, but like the rugby and the rugby training, like in hindsight, set you up very well for Hyrox?
Um, I was thinking that they've like preseason training and like there'd always be some sort of fitness block at the start of our training sessions, and those would be the sessions that I'd usually excel in. I was always one of the fitter guys in the team, if not the fittest guy in the team, and I was always quite proud about that. So I usually thrived in preseason training, and I loved going to like doing my extra work in the gym. We usually had a small group of us that would go to the gym after school when we weren't doing rugby training, and I always enjoyed those sessions. And I suppose I just carried on that throughout the rest of my life. And then the more so sort of the style of rugby that sort of made me appreciate what it actually feels to sort of feel those like red zone efforts is rugby sevens. I don't know if you've ever watched a rugby sevens game, but it's an incredibly intense form and style of rugby. Like I remember my first proper sevens game was a European Championships game, and this was for the men's team, and I think I was maybe 19 or 20 at the time, and we'd only been playing for maybe a minute or two, but the ball was in play for a minute or two. And I just remember as soon as the ball stopped, like my heart was absolutely racing. I was absolutely red flying, and I was looking around at the rest of my team, and I was thinking, there's absolutely no way that everyone else is feeling what I'm feeling right now because this is just horrendous. And then, like, almost 5 seconds later, the ball's back in play again, and it's just the most fast-paced game ever. And it was just incredibly challenging. And that sort of teaches you a bit of like resilience and to know that you can push through the hurt, I suppose. Eventually, like I remember coming out of that tournament thinking, I absolutely hate this sport and I never want to play sevens again. But then I eventually came around to it and understand how you can sort of conserve a bit of energy and play the game to your speed a little bit more. So I actually ended up almost preferring and being better at rugby sevens than I was at rugby 15s, like normal rugby. So
Yeah.
I definitely think there was a bit of carryover through that into Hyrox, but yeah.
Okay. Um, and then so Hyrox, like at some point you discovered Hyrox. You've not actually been in the sport that long, have you?
No, so I did my first open race in uh last year, 2024. Yeah, but funny enough, I was actually like traveling around Europe at the time, and I think I may have been in like Austria or something like that. And weirdly enough, coincidentally, my mate had sent me through this video of the Hyrox elites racing against each other. And I'd never seen Hyrox in my life. I think maybe we'd been familiar with Hunter. We'd seen Hunter's videos before or something like that, but this is the first time I'd actually seen the race in person. And I stumbled upon this Hyrox gym in Austria somehow and saw all the ski ergs and stuff like that and the rowers and the sleds and stuff. And I just thought, I'll just have a go at everything. It looks pretty cool. My form was probably disgusting. Like an idiot doing it all, but it was just interesting to me, and I didn't really think about it at all, like, after that, like, just sort of parked it at the back of my mind, and then, um, I think I remember, like, midway through 2024, I'd seen that Hyrox was coming to Melbourne, and, I was pretty excited about it because I thought it would be something that would be within my wheelhouse. As I said, I've always been pretty fit, always enjoyed fitness. I had done sort of a few CrossFit-y style workouts, so I was more familiar with the ergs, by then, and, um, and I thought this would be perfect opportunity to give it a go. I didn't really wanna go straight into the deep end and going for a pro race, so I decided just to go for an open, race the open, and, for my first race, I got a 56:47, I think, which at the time was the APAC record, so the Asian Pacific record, for the open, and then, yeah, it just carried on from there. I got the bug straight away, and I was like, "This is amazing," and then here we are.
Nice, nice, amazing. So yeah, now here we are. You've recently raced in the Elite 15, like your debut Elite 15 race in Melbourne. You finished fifth. Um, just before that, actually, you'd beaten James Kelly in Seoul shortly before that. So presumably that was a confidence booster and gave you some confidence going into the Melbourne race, did it?
Yeah, it was a really cool experience actually. Like, I sort of went out to Seoul a little bit early, got the opportunity to travel around the city and meet a few of the locals as well. Like I trained in a local gym there, and the guys there were just absolutely obsessed with Hyrox, and they were so kind and welcoming to me. They would like let me go in by myself or let me come in before there was like a class or something like that, and let me do my own sessions. And they were like quite really intrigued and interested in how I was training. They had no idea about any of my times or anything before that, and they'd also they also, funnily enough, James Kelly actually also trained at that same gym like after me because I think he coached one of the guys that runs the gym. Um, but yeah, James had actually sent me a message a few days before the race saying that he knew that I'd be there and that he was excited to race. And yeah, normally I think the old me would have been quite intimidated by the challenge of racing someone as good as James. Like, obviously, he's been around in the sport for a long time, and he's clocked up some incredible times, like a few seconds off the world record. He's an incredible athlete, and like tradition, like in the past, I probably would have been a bit scared of that, but I was actually quite excited for the challenge. Like I really wanted to see how I could compare against someone who's the top of the sport, and to come away with a win was, yeah, as you said, it was a huge confidence booster to know that I can actually mix in with these guys, and it just made me even more motivated for Melbourne, I suppose.
Yeah, nice.
Um,
How was tell us about Melbourne? How was like not the race necessarily, but like the going into it? How was the like the Elite 15 experience overall?
it was um I thought about this a lot, and I don't know if you can like picture what I'm saying, but there was an old Nike football ad. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's filmed in a way that's like a point of view of a player, and the ad goes through like the time period of him like exceeding throughout his career, and like at one point he's like, I think he gets signed on by Arsenal or something like that, and he's like meeting all the players and stuff like that, and you start to realize recognize all the players. And that's kind of what it felt like to me. It's a bit of a difference, I'm sorry, but, like, I was sort of going around the change rooms and, like, the first person I meet was Graham Halliday, and then next up, you see Charlie Botterill, and then, Sean Noble, and then, you're in the change room, you meet Jake Dearden, you meet Alan Ploy, and it's just, like, one name after the other that you've seen through social media, through Instagram, through YouTube for so many years, and then all of a sudden you're in the same room as them, you sit next to them, you're having a chat with them, and it's just pretty surreal. It's an amazing feeling. And then the best thing for me was that they're just so down to earth and they're really inviting and they're really like sort of excited for you to be there as well for your first
Mhm.
time. Like, and yeah, you sort of having a chat with them and you realize that they're almost just as nervous as you, and they're like excited for the opportunity to be racing in Hyrox because it's changing so much and the sport is just getting so much more professional with every major that comes around, it seems. So they get to experience it for the first time as well, pretty much. But yeah, just the the whole media day thing was interesting. There was definitely some challenges there with the most notably the headshots when you had to do the different poses. I really struggled with that, and it didn't help having Jake did in and poking his head in through the door looking at me. But yeah, that made it pretty hard and awkward. But
Jake
no,
Dearden's a pro at that stuff. He does it
yeah,
daily, right?
he's face of Red Bull, so he's used to it. But for me, I'm a bit of a newbie. So no, overall, it was I absolutely loved the experience. Just being like even in the warm up area, just seeing how it was really interesting to see how everyone warmed up. Like someone like Sean Noble, I've never seen someone stack a sled so heavy, and he was he was doing these sled pulls, and I was like, bloody hell. He was drooping in sweat before the race even started as well. I was like, each their own. Like I suppose, and someone like Charlie Bottrell's just like bouncing around. He goes on the bike and seems pretty relaxed. And you know, everyone has their own little intricate ways of warming up for the race, and it's pretty cool to see. Someone like Alan is also you can tell he's a footballer. Like the way that he warms up, he's very like dynamic, and he does his leg swings and stuff like that. And yeah, it was cool to see. And funnily enough, like the first time I'd probably spoken to John Wynn was in the warm up area, and he was just so lovely. Like even 10 minutes before the race started, like he was like calming me down. He's saying, "Oh yeah, like you know, someone like him, he's been in the sport for a while now, and he's just as excited for us new guys to come through and race for the first time." And no, he was a great guy.
Good, good. And how about the setup, like the course, that specific room that they're in? Like, did you like that? Did you like the setup of the elite specific setup?
Yeah, I will admit that the corners there's a lot of corners to go around. That
Mm.
was a bit of I think the leg took a bit of a shock there, but I actually really like the grid system. It worked really well for me. I especially like the farmer carry. I think mentally that's a lot nicer than having to zigzag around a little course. Just having the one lap was great, and then you can just go straight into that run. That was really nice. Um, yeah, no, overall it was great, and the screen with your laps worked really nicely. Just like hats off to Hyrox. They've just like elevated every single major it seems, and like the whole the whole setup was just so professional, and you really do feel like a professional athlete when you step in there now. So it's awesome to see, and I can't wait to see what they're doing in future. But yeah, it's really cool.
We'll get into your training in a little bit, but will you train for all that corner turning? Like, because it is 5 or 6 laps per kilometer in this elite specific setup. Will you train for that
Yeah,
or not?
it's real. So I wouldn't really know how to train that, like, unless I'm running around a car park or something like that. But um, I think I heard in Jake Dearden's video or something like that. It's like 161 corners or something throughout the race. But um, maybe not train, but just be more aware of it. Like there might be an increased bit of leg fatigue towards the back end of the race, and just adjust for that, or like be conscious of it when you do get to more towards maybe the lunges or the wobbles. Um, that your legs are gonna maybe feel a little bit heavier than you would have expected. But I don't know. I know someone like John Wynn had done like specific corner training due to the new grid system and the new layout. Yeah, it's not something I've thought about too much, if I'm honest.
Um, and then the race itself, like how do you feel about the race? Like you finished fifth, it was a brilliant performance on your debut.
Mm.
Um, uh, how do you feel about it overall?
I mean, like it's a bit bittersweet, honestly. Like, obviously, I would have loved to have come away with with a top three finish. That was the goal going into the race. I would have loved to have punched my ticket to Worlds. But to have come away with fifth, I can't be too upset with that. I think going forward, I definitely want to have a bit of a mindset switch. Whereas, like, instead of just sort of being happy to be there and just compete, I want to be shooting for that top spot. If I'm being honest, like instead of just being happy to sort of let other people coast in front of me, I want to be more so a bit of a challenger. Um, um, but Yeah, honestly, throughout the race, I was a little bit surprised, a little bit shocked to have been in third place for a good chunk of the race. Um, Usually, I tend to build into the race a little bit slower, so I would have maybe have expected to be in that position around like maybe the last two stations, but I think going into the rower, I was already in third place, and maybe I can't really remember. Maybe the sled pull, I was in third place even. So it's quite early on in the race, and it did feel like I was kind of trying to hold on to that position for as long as possible. But no, I think it felt somewhat comfortable as a Hyrox race can be. But no, I definitely I didn't feel out of my depth. I'll say that, and it's just maybe even more excited to race the next one and push harder. I reckon is the goal for the next one.
You came into the wall balls in third. Like,
Mm.
did you? Was there a lot of no reps that you got there? Do you feel like they were fair?
Way.
Have you looked back at them?
Oh, like I've tried not to buy into the fairness of of it all. To be honest, like the decision on the day was what the decision on the day was. Like I can't change anything now. Like I've had multiple people message me after the race saying like, "Oh, I've had so and so judge before, and I've had lots of no reps with them as well." And I was like, "Well, so be it." Like to me, it's just like something that I need to work on, and that's fine. I don't mind trying to work on it. Like it's not as if I hadn't worked on my depth in the wall balls leading up to the race. In fact, it's something that I had worked a lot on. There was, I think it was after the Maastricht race, there was a video of it may have been Sean Noble that had just continuous no reps given to him,
Yeah,
and that
yeah.
sort of brought was brought to the attention of myself and my coach Chris, and we sort of came up with a bit of a game plan to really work on my depth for my warbles because we knew it was a bit of a grey area uh, within my race. Definitely something that I needed to work on. So we had been working on that depth for a long time, um, and yeah, just unfortunately, may have been just general tightness throughout the race. As I said, the cornering may have made me less flexible to hit the depth, but yeah, the judge came up to me afterwards and we spoke, and they just made it very clear that yeah, if you are within that grey area of depth, then they unfortunately they have to label it as a no rep. So yeah, it just makes if you're competing at the top end of the sport, you need to expect these sort of high levels of accuracy, which is what you want. You don't really want to coast on like 50/50s, and you don't really want the easy way out either. So um it is what it is, and believe me that I'm working on my depth now, so
Out of
yeah.
interest, what does working on your depth mean? Is
Mm.
it literally just like making sure you get depth in all your reps, or are you having to do like mobility work, certain squat movements, or things like that? If someone at home
Yeah,
is
so,
struggling with similar, for example.
um, uh, definitely, like, say, for example, in the lead up to this race and around Seoul, I was using quite a low stool, like a little block almost around the height of a wall ball, and using that as like a gauge to hit depth. So I knew that if I was sitting on that stool, my hip crease would definitely be below my knee crease. So therefore, I would be hitting depth on that. So I'd be doing all of my wall ball reps using that stool. So just as long as my bum would hit the stool, I'd know that I'd be hitting depth. Um, and then now, so I'm making sure that if I'm doing wall balls in training or something, I will have someone to watch my reps, someone that knows what good depth looks like, and get them to be brutally honest with me. If I'm not hitting them, then I'm not hitting them. Um, and then, implementing more, just adding volume of squatting, I suppose, and squatting to good depth, with full range is what I'm really trying to work on through, being on fresh legs, being on tired legs, trying to leave no no stone unturned with the squatting mechanics, I suppose. I've shot out so many messages to different people about who've hit like good wall ball times and seeing if they've got any specific tips for me. And yeah, just trying to be a bit of a wall ball nerd, I suppose, is is the best. tactic I'm using at the moment.
Right, nice. Just before we get into training, I want to ask about doubles. I've noticed you've not done a doubles yet. Are you
Yeah.
planning on it? Do you want to like try and get in this Elite 15 doubles races or anything like that?
If I'm honest, I'm not really too focused on doubles for this season at least. I've definitely had a lot of interest from people looking to do a doubles with me. I'm not saying I'd never do it. I'm just saying for this season at least, I want to focus just purely on singles. Um, it does interest me. I know that the stimulus would be slightly different compared to a normal solo race, purely based on that the efforts will be a lot harder and you're pushing a lot harder, but for shorter intervals. I'm not sure how that would uh how I'd adapt to that or how I'd feel during that type of race, but there's only one way to find out really. I'd definitely be interested to try. I'm not saying I'd never do one. Um, I do have a potential partner in mind for future. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see how that pans out next season, most likely.
Okay. When I was preparing for this, I was like, oh yeah, he's not got a partner. I was like, who else has not got a partner? And I was like, Hunter hasn't really for the Elite 15 at the moment. So I was going to start that rumor if you were interested in doing it. I was going to start that rumor on this, but if you're not thinking about it this season, then maybe not.
Or if there would be anyone to race the doubles with, it would be pretty cool to race with Hunter. But
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Uh, we'll see. We'll see.
All right. All right. Training. Let's talk about training. I thought we might start with. I looked at your website. You've got a coaching website, and it says your favorite quote is "Be consistently good instead of occasionally great." So how does that show up in your training? Is it about managing intensity? Like, how do you think about that in your training?
Yeah, I suppose that that spans across more than just your training in general. It's like if you wanna to me, if you want to be a top athlete, you have to take quite a holistic approach to all things in regards to performing your best. So that means looking at your recovery, your diet, your sleep, and then of course your training as well. So um, for me, um, being able to show up consistently, you need to have those other things in place. So if you're there's no point in redlining every single session because you're just not going to get you're not going to reap the rewards from it. So I think understanding your body's limits and understanding what you're capable of within a certain session is really important. And I think for me, I try and find. I think a big thing for me is finding wins within every single training session, and it can come in a lot of different ways. And the beauty of it that is that you can kind of choose what that win is, as long as you come out of the training session with a positive mindset. I think that's really important to keep you showing up and to keep you adhering to a training plan. That might be like, for example, a running pace or a distance that you've run. Maybe you've improved in some sense of your training. Sometimes that might be a psychological thing. For example, can't say I'm a huge fan of ski erg training and trying to maintain a certain ski erg threshold pace may not be on the cards for one training session. To get a win out of that session, like initially I may have gone in thinking like, okay, if I can hold this pace on the ski erg, I'll be happy, and that's my win for the training session. But some days you just don't have it in you, and you don't have the go that you thought, and you might not be hitting those paces, but that's okay. You can change your mindset and to think to get a win out of this. All I want to do is just finish the session. I just want to get all my sets done. I'm going to get them done to the best of my ability, and I'm going to call that a win for the session. A loss in that situation may have been that you quit. If you were too focused on the paces and you go, okay, I haven't hit my paces for the first two sets. That's it. I'm going to call it a day. I'm done. But instead, you can say, all right, I'm still going to give it my best. I'm going to try and get my heart rate to the zones that I need it to be in. and I kind of get all my sets done. I might not have hit my paces, but as long as I've got that win under my belt, I'm happy. All right, then I can go away from the session feeling fulfilled. And then, you know, I found that that's really paid off for me. Like, say, for example, if I've got two ski erg sessions, maybe on a Tuesday and a Thursday, that Tuesday session may have not have gone to plan, but I used that mindset trick and I said, still somehow came out with the win, may not have hit the paces. And then maybe on Thursday, a similar sort of ski erg session, I've actually firsthand experienced that I've even improved better. Like the paces were way above what I had expected to hit that day, you know? So then, those little wins just compound over time. Like as long as you can come out of a training session with a win, I think that's really important for you. And no matter how small that win is, like, um, with things like weightlifting and stuff like that, the top end athletes aren't looking to put on 5 kilos or 10 kilos on either side every single week. They're finding tiny little margins of gains every single week to get that sort of that compounding effect and the um or progressive overload, right?
Mhm.
It's the same thing with your training in my mind. Like I try and find those little pockets of wins every single week, and I just find that's been incredibly beneficial to me to stay consistent and just to keep improving as well, just chasing those little wins.
Yeah, yeah, nice. It actually reminds me of like a recent episode with Damien Hughes from the High Performance podcast that I did, and he talked about a quote from Phil Neville about high performance, which was, I think it was, do the best you can in the moment, with what you've got in the moment you're in, and it kind of
Yeah.
it sort of applies to that ski session. Like the best you can is not wasn't actually that day that to hit all those paces, but the best you can do is like still do all the sets, all the reps to the best of your ability. And I guess that's what you did. So yeah, I really like that. That's nice.
Yeah.
Um,
So being able to give 100% of what you have for that day. As long as you've given 100% of what you have, then that's all you can do really. Some days that 100% looks better than others, but as long as you know in your mind that you've done all that you can, then that's all that you can ask for really.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I noticed. I think I'm right in saying this that you had actually had the fastest run time in the Elite 15 by a reasonable margin as well. And I must admit, it surprised me just because I'd have guessed it was Tim, and like you're a bigger guy, certainly on the bigger side, and so I just wouldn't have assumed you were one of the better runners in the field, but you were. It was very impressive time. Um, Tell us about your running training. Like what like, like what your running training like? What's the weekly volume that you're doing, and then like break that down. Like how much of that is easy? Are you going threshold? Are you going beyond threshold? What does it look like?
Um, I've actually sort of dialed back my running a little bit. I still I'll do sort of 3 efforts of hard running a week. So that would be 2 sort of threshold sessions and then, um, 1 sim workout, which will be at threshold effort as well. I'll never run over threshold, so I never go into that VO2 max sort of range just because, I just don't think that it's always worth the fatigue that comes with it. Potentially something to play around with in future, but, um and then maybe one longer run at the start of the week. But otherwise, a lot of my work is done on like my zone 2 work would either be done on a bike or the Stairmaster. Um, but rarely ever do anything over 70 minutes in running. Like I would never go um for like definitely never over 90 minutes anymore. Try to avoid that if possible, just because of the fatigue and the strain that it puts on your body.
Mhm.
But yeah, the threshold sessions I try to push quite hard. I will run on a treadmill. I'm not really someone that uses an incline on the treadmill. I know that there are benefits to it to sort of replicate road running or the feel of road running. But just because I've struggled, I've had a few calf niggles in the past, and I just feel it aggravates it a little bit if I run on an incline. I don't really feel the need, and I've clearly had the same sort of benefits without that incline, so I don't think it's always necessary. Um, I do tend to put the paces up quite high on the treadmills. Running at in the lead up to the last race, I was running more so at like 5K effort pace. So that would be over what my traditional threshold pace would be, or like higher end threshold. Um, but yeah, sort of toyed around with different lengths of intervals and different rest periods and stuff like that. But generally, I wouldn't say that I'm running. I'm probably not someone that does a whole load of mileage. Like I'm definitely on the mid to lower level of mileage. It's just more intense, I'd say. I base it more off time instead of kilometers or miles. So like if I'm doing like threshold efforts, it would be time based as opposed to X amount of kilometers.
Okay. And are you looking for like what would a at threshold? Are you looking for like half-hour work in a session, or is it longer than that?
So yeah, probably around that. It depends what we're trying to get out of the session. For someone like me, I know that my running is fairly strong at the moment, so I'm looking to put more emphasis actually on into the stations. So you may have a shorter interval leading into a station, and that's how you sort of set up my threshold session. So you may have like for example, like a 4x6 or something like that, and then lead into um, like maybe a shorter run into a station and then a shorter run again, on whatever station I'm trying to focus on and build up efficiency in. Yeah, but that's what we've been working on at the moment. It's working quite well.
Okay. So some like I guess you might call it like some like compromise station work towards the end of a running threshold session. Is that fair?
We just call it interruptions, really. But yeah, um, compromised is a good word as well, I suppose.
Yeah. Okay. I was going to ask, like, as one of the, I think you're, is it around 190 pounds, 86 kilograms that you weigh? Like, as one of the heavier guys, like heavier runner, like, I was going to ask if you're managing your running volume because of that, and but I guess that's the reason that you're not doing too much zone two, like you're doing that off your feet, and maybe some treadmill work as well, like to avoid injury as one reason. Yeah.
Yeah, I just found like if I do too much work on the road, especially, then I do find those little niggles pick up quite quickly. And I haven't really had any issues with my aerobic capacity swapping to the bike or the Stairmaster or the assault bike. In fact, when I did struggle with a calf strain, I recently swapped out all of my threshold running for the assault bike, and I found that I had lost pretty much zero fitness in terms of my running capacity. Um, I think that's a direct one-to-one replacement. In fact, as long as you can get your heart rate up into the required zones, and I think the assault bike is a really good replacement for threshold running.
Uh, the zone two work, like you mentioned Stairmaster. Not a lot of people talk about Stairmaster, really. I know Chris Woolley ages ago on here, I think he'd done quite a lot of it. I think Charlie Bottrell does a bit, but I don't see a lot of people talk about that. Do you value it quite highly? Do you think it maybe helps on the stations as well?
Yeah, I definitely think my coach has been a big advocate for it for a fair while now, and I've used it a lot in my training, in a lot of different styles, and it's I think I almost prefer it to the bike sometimes in terms of it gets my heart rate into that zone a lot quicker than sometimes it feels like it's a bit of a slog trying to get my heart rate into the right zone for on the bike. Can be a little bit boring as well, but I find like I've done a whole mix of Stairmaster workouts where we've sort of introduced those interruptions as well, like you would with the treadmill running. Um, you can do it with a weighted vest as well. Maybe slow the pace down, increase the pace, whatever you need. It's a fairly adaptable tool to use for Hyrox as well. And I think the way that the machine is set up is actually really good for building muscular endurance, just because it's continuous. Especially if you're using a weighted vest. you're constantly doing a concentric movement, so you're constantly stepping up. You don't have to worry about the fatigue of the eccentric moving of bringing the foot down. So it's pretty good. And if you think about a movement like the sled push, right, you're constantly stepping forward, similar to how you would with the on the stairs with a weighted vest. So I think there is a good carryover to Hyrox as well. So I can imagine that a lot more people will be using it in the future.
Yeah. What is your training volume? Like, how many hours in total do you reckon you're doing every week?
Uh, Throughout the week, I think in they probably anywhere between two to maybe 3.5 hours a day. So, and I'd be around 20 hours, I'd say. Low end, maybe 14, 15, 16 hours, I think. Yeah.
All right. So, yeah, your coach you mentioned a couple of times, Chris Bynes, I think is a big believer in HRV training and like measuring your HRV every day and letting that determine your training volume or training intensity. Is that how you're using it day to day?
Yeah. So we use something called Morpheus, which is basically, as you say, a heart rate variability tracker. Basically, you just strap it on every morning. It measures your heart rate. Um, it will give you a score between 0 and 100. And generally, if you're sitting between that 80 to 100% range, then you're pretty much good to go as normal. You don't need to adjust anything. But if you're sitting anywhere below 80 to maybe 60%, then you may look to, for example, if you're doing like a threshold session, then you may drop a few sets, or you're looking to adjust the training session slightly. But if your scores are in the red zone, anywhere from like 40, 50, 60, under below that, then you're looking to maybe completely shift the training session to like a recovery day or something like that, just to boost your recovery to get it back up to that green zone, and so you're not risking injury of any kind. Yeah, we've been using that for as pretty much as long as I've been working with Chris, and have found good benefit in it. There's only so much you can do based off feel. Chris likes to say that trust data, not feelings, is his motto pretty much. So it just basically cuts out any of the guesswork. Some days you may be feeling 100%. You feel like you go after a hard session, but if the Morpheus says you're sitting on like a 50 or a 40, then regardless of how you're feeling and how ready you are to train, we shift this because we just don't want to risk injury. You could be in that phase of coming back from a hard session, and your body's just still recovering from it. And if you are to push it even further, then you're likely to enter that danger zone of potentially injuring yourself. So why risk it? If we're looking, if the name of the game is consistency, then being able to train every single day is the goal. So and that means avoiding injury. So if that means swapping out a threshold session for maybe a recovery day, and then maybe hitting that threshold a few days later, day after, that's fine by me, as long as you can get the weekly volume. It's pretty important, I think. So I have found good benefit in using the Morpheus and the heart rate variability tracker.
So there have been instances where, say, like you might feel good, but Morpheus tells you like to dial it back, and you've dialed it back. Like you're not
Yeah,
tempted
100%.
to, yeah.
Yeah, and like I've used it with some of my athletes as well. And generally you find it, and I've been guilty of this as well, that you do tend to feel a little bit bent, almost like you feel as like a personal attack. Like, oh, I don't know why I slept great, I ate well like the night before, whatever. Like, I don't know why it's telling me it must be wrong. But obviously there's a little bit of a human element that you can bring to it. Like, if the person is really feeling like proper fine, like good to go, sometimes I let them like run the first interval maybe and see how they feel. If they are feeling fine, then maybe just go for it. I'll be lying if I said that I haven't run through a lower score than I probably should have. Maybe towed the line a little bit too much, but um, it's just basically it really takes a lot of guesswork out of your training, and sometimes it might not be right because I've had days where I felt awful, and it gives me a score of like 96 or something like that, and the session just feels like a real slog. So there's it can't always be right. It can't be right 100% of the time. So um, yeah, you just have to use a little bit of intuition as well with that, I suppose. But I'd say about 90% of the time it is correct, and it's just a little bit easier to just trust it. But leading into a race, I'd rather not look at my Morpheus. I don't track maybe 3 days out from a race just because I don't want it to have any sort of mental
Mhm.
load going into the race. If, on race day it says, "Oh, you're only sitting at like 40 or 50%," that's gonna have an effect on how you feel, right? You're gonna go into the race and go, "Oh, I'm a little bit under recovered. I do feel a little bit sluggish today." I don't really need that going into a race, so I never track maybe the week of or few days leading into a race, and I tell my athletes to do the same.
Yeah. Okay. And then typically, what does your week look like? Are you alternating like harder days with very easy days? Is there, or is it a little bit more like because you're under threshold? Is it a little bit more consistent day to day, or is there that like alternating sort of
Yeah, so we
structure?
call them like say today was like an aerobic day, which tends to be a little bit longer, but lower intensity efforts. So my heart rate generally won't go up too high, and it'll probably be around zone 2 or zone 3 of a session. Um, and then you have 2 or 3 of those throughout the week, and then 3 threshold sessions um, throughout the week as well. So Monday and Wednesday, and at the moment Sunday is that aerobic day for me, and then Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, those threshold days. Friday's a little bit of a recovery day. I'm currently actually only doing two dedicated strength sessions per week at the moment. The rest sort of comes from within those aerobic sessions where they're not always done on like an erg or a bike or the stairmaster. There is some sort of metcon style element to it as well, which does play into your strength or your muscular endurance. I just don't think there's that much need for dedicated strength training for Hyrox. I think you can get a lot out of, practicing the stations or doing those Metcon style workouts as well. But yeah, those threshold days do tend to be quite intense. And I pair those with my strength days. So hard days are really hard, and then the easy days tend to be a little bit less impactful.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Makes sense. What does your running look like? I touched on like you're the quickest in the elite 15. Have you done like I think you've done a half marathon recently, yeah?
Yeah, I did half a couple months ago at the Perth Running Festival. I clocked a 1:10:43 in that one, which was third place. I was
Nice.
pretty chuffed with that one, to be honest.
Yeah, nice. What was the reason for doing that? Just because you wanted to? Or did you feel like it fit into your training quite well?
It's actually a bit of a confidence booster. Needed it after I raced in Perth Hyrox maybe a month before that. And going into that race, I had a really good block in the lead up. Like I felt like I was on top of the world. I was incredibly fit. And then 2 weeks before the race, I got influenza, and that had a massive effect on my lungs and my breathing. So I was like really, really sick for like 5 days. I couldn't train at all. And then going back into training after that, my breathing was heavily affected. And like even trying to go on the bike for 30 minutes, I'd be pedaling like maybe 120 watts or something, and my heart rate would be jacked up and like struggling, coughing up a lung every 10 minutes or something like that. And um I suppose like going into that race, I let my ego get the better of me. So the two combined together of being sick and then, your ego getting the better of you from the very start. Like I was ripping the skier way harder than I'd ever done before. And it just bit me in the ass, and I was struggling, holding on for dear life for the whole race. I ended up getting second overall to Tom Rogers. He beat me by a second. But I think I was more so disappointed with my my own personal performance more than anything, more than the result, to be honest. Quite frustrated with how I came into the race, and letting my ego get the better of me. And I knew that my fitness was way better than what it showed on the day. And in all honesty, I like struggled a little bit mentally after that race. Like I was pretty beat up about myself, and it took me a while to sort of. I really felt like I'd lost a lot of momentum after that. And we'd seen that the Perth half marathon was on, and I really wanted to use that as like a test to see how good my running was, because I'd felt like my running was really strong and always has been. But I really wanted to see what I could do for a half marathon effort. My previous record, a 1:16, I think, the year before I did the Melbourne Marathon, and that was just when I was a pure runner. And then I yeah, spoke to coach, Chris, and was like, "Let's just see it as like a time trial, see what you can do, run freely, don't think about it too much, try and find a group and settle in." And tried to run it at like threshold pace the whole time and managed to do that. And yeah, came in third place, which is quite nice.
Amazing. Awesome. So you actually like improved like by 6 minutes going from pure running training to Hyrox training, you still improved by 6 minutes.
I think a lot of that was also, well, I was still a fairly new runner at the time, so since then I'd also just practiced running a lot. And I think I understood a lot more about, or I learned a lot more about fueling properly and just looking after my health a lot more. Like during that time, in the lead up to that marathon, I think I'd developed some form of relative energy deficiency, because I was just having all these symptoms and my mood was terrible. I'd lost a whole lot of weight. You know, I'm sitting at 86 kilos now, which was what I think would be my natural weight would be. At the time when I was training for that marathon, I think I dropped down to below 80 kilos. I was incredibly, incredibly light and pretty injury prone, and my immune system was terrible to the point where I'd even contracted chickenpox, at quite a at 25 years old, so it could have been a lot worse. Um, but still ended up running the marathon, got a PB, so came out of it fairly unscathed. Um, but yeah, I learned a lot from those mistakes and taking it into my training now. I'm feeling a whole lot better for it.
Do you now like you mentioned like the red S, like do you track your calories and things now, or are you more like just mindful of your weight and not losing too much weight?
I don't track my calories, but I'm just a lot more conscious of fueling properly around my training and making sure I'm eating enough. Like, um, I'd say if people with like a regular person were to look at my diet, they probably think that it's pretty obscene with the amount that I eat. I'm just hungry all the time, pretty much. But it's all right. I love food. I love to eat. I rarely feel full, so it works quite nicely for me. Um, and yeah, if like I monitor like if I'm fluctuating at all, but it doesn't tend to happen because I generally eat the same thing most days. I know it's a bit boring and monotonous, but it just works and I enjoy the food that I eat. Uh, but yeah, just staying on top of that has been really important for me. Like I knew how that felt, and not only the effect that it had on myself, but for the people around me as well. I genuinely wasn't very pleasant to be around, and I just really don't want to enter into that state again. You know, because your mood is affected because you're essentially in a deficit the whole time. You're in a stressed state constantly. Obviously, your mood's going to be terrible, and you're going to get pissed off at the slightest thing. So yeah, I really want to avoid that for the people around me as well. So it's not just a selfish thing.
Yeah. Are you just while we're talking about nutrition? Are you taking a gel or anything in the race at the moment?
Yeah. Yeah, I would take one before the race, so maybe 30 minutes before we kick off, and then, after the rower, I will take a gel as well. I've got these ones from a brand called the Maple Movement. It's pure maple syrup. Um, it's, sits really well with me. It's pretty viscous. Um, goes down really easily. It works really well for me, so I'm quite enjoying those.
Okay, nice. Let's talk about mindset, but just we'll start with like what is your why for doing things like this, racing in Hyrox? Is there like a thing that motivates you?
Wondering when this is going to come up. It usually comes up. Uh, um,
I'm
with my
mixing it
wife.
up.
It's good. I like it. Keeps it interesting. My why. Definitely think as much as I tried to say that I'm not. I think I've always been incredibly competitive. I like to downplay it a lot outside of sport. Like, I like to think I'm not really obsessed with like card games or board games or anything like that. But even I hate losing. Like playing PlayStation or something like that. Every time I lose, I threw the biggest tantrum. Um, and I suppose that sort of coincides with the striving to see where my potential lies as well, especially in this sport because I'm still very new to it and I've had a lot of growth in the sport fairly quickly. Um, it's really exciting for me to see uh, how much I can improve on, and I love finding, as I said, like you've seen in my training, I love to find little wins. It goes hand in hand with the race as well. Like if I can find those wins in training, that's going to carry over to the race as well. So I want to find those wins in the race and see little improvements within every race and find learnings and keep improving on myself. It's quite exciting because like I played rugby for 20 years and after a while it felt pretty stale. There only felt so much you could improve on. Like I would like to say I was always a very good technical player. Like I had a very clean pass. My kicking was very good, but I never really had the mental side of the game on lock. And I think you can't really teach that. Either you've got it or you don't. Unfortunately, I don't. Um, I was always very fit, but just didn't have the rugby smarts. Like you see these um, like Pacific Islander boys, like our fly half at Melbourne Uni was a Pacific Islander, and he was just so naturally gifted. Like he was incredibly skillful as well, but he just had the vision, which I just could only ever dream of. And you just can't teach that, unfortunately. So coming into this sport and finding new ways to improve yourself is really exciting for me. And it's the way that you get better is basically by practicing and by training. And I love training, so I love seeing where I can keep pushing and keep improving. So I suppose that's my why. See where my limits lie.
Okay, awesome. What about your mindset during a race when things are getting tough? What do you do? What do you think about to help you there?
I think come to realize that I've got like a bit of a weird obsession with getting old, and I have a bit of a fear of getting old, and I'm very aware that one day I won't be able to do what I'm doing today, and that sort of plays in my mind before a race and before hard training sessions, and um I always feel very grateful to be able to do what I am doing. Like I look at my say for example my granddad. He's 96 years old, and he used to be really active, and he could walk around and be very, self-sufficient, but nowadays he needs a lot more people to help him out and stuff like that, and, one day, if I'm lucky, I'll get to the age of 96, but just being grateful for the body that I have and the physical ability that I have to be able to run around and push 200 kilos and pull 150 kilos, whatever it is, and, compete at this high level is just like a real blessing to me. I want to take it, take full advantage of the fitness that I have at this point in time. I think I also realized that when I had a pretty bad knee injury and I was bedbound for like 2 weeks and I had to learn to walk around again. That was I remember being in bed thinking like I'm never gonna take running for granted again. Like when something that is so important to you is taken away, you realize, you don't really know what you got until it's gone type thing. And now every time I compete or if I'm out on a run and, it feels a little bit hard, I think about like this is where you want to be. This is the best thing to you pretty much. And what's the alternative being bedbound or, one day you won't be able to do what you're doing now. So I think that's what carries me through a lot, and I do think about, um, yeah, those periods and
Yeah,
those people.
love that. Yeah, similar. I think Charlie Bottrell said something similar actually, like feeling grateful for being able to do this. It's come up a couple of times actually. So yeah, love that.
Chosen life, or
Sorry, say that again.
chosen suffering. Like
Yeah,
you've chosen suffering. Some people in the world have suffering forced upon them, but you've chosen to do this, and yeah, it's not that bad, really, at the end of the day.
yeah. Uh, I gave you a heads up that I might ask this, but and we did it with Gabby Moriarty as well the first time. But the Triple H question, which I believe is started in the world of rugby, actually, to there's a bit of team building, but asking people their hero, hardship, and highlight in their life. Uh, so we can we do that with you if you like? So starting with hero, who's a hero in your life?
Like, it's a good thing you gave me a bit of a heads up on this one because there's, I have thought about it a fair bit, and there's definitely a lot of people that have been quite inspiring to me throughout my life. Like, when I was very young, a sporting hero of mine, being obsessed with rugby and English, was Johnny Wilkinson. I've always really admired his work ethic. He was, and obviously he was the golden boy for a long, long time. But from like a holistic standpoint, I'm unfortunately going to sound like a bit of a Tom Brady here, but I have to say my dad is a bit of a hero of mine. Like, been very fortunate to have a very close relationship with him throughout my whole life, and he's just been an incredible role model for me. He was my rugby coach. He taught me a lot of good values from a young age, and not only me, but my friends as well. And he's instilled that in me from a young age, and I'll carry that throughout my life essentially. And I still use it to this day. And one of them is just to never really give up when things get hard. Like, there's definitely been some times in my life where I've wanted to quit and I've wanted to, throw the towel in a bit early. And then he's always brought me back to just don't quit now. You never know what's gonna happen. And like, looking back on those situations, it's always worked out well in my favor. Everything always happens for a reason. Um, and yeah, like, there were definitely times where in the moment, I would have told them to piss off because I just didn't want a bar of it. Like, but looking back, it definitely shaped me to be a lot more resilient today. And he's a simple man, and he's got simple pleasures, and I think that's a pretty good way to live. So yeah, he's he definitely works hard as well. He's sacrificed an incredible amount for myself and my mum to look after our family. So no, he's always been a bit of a hero to me. Um, but that's just the way it is. Moving on to hardship. I think I briefly mentioned it before, but there was a period at the end of 2023. Um, just a few things. Like, I think I'd gone through a bit of a breakup. I had to move out of my apartment and uh, do a bit of couch surfing at the time. And rugby had finished up for the season, and I was kind of feeling a little bit lost. And I was just I was training really hard. Like, I was probably just trying to suppress a lot of emotion through training, and burning the candle at both ends as well. So I'd be training hard, but I'd be going out most weekends as well, pretty heavily, until, like, yeah, I was just running my body to the ground essentially. And then we went to go play touch rugby, and my body was feeling pretty beaten up, and I went to do a sidestep, and I ended up tearing my ACL, and then that put me out for that whole season. And um but looking back, I suppose that allowed me to sort of stop and reassess where I was in my life and what I wanted out of my training, and like, if I even still wanted to play rugby, because I think I'd actually fallen out of love with the game for a bit there, and it allowed me to reassess what I actually wanted to do. And after the injury, I decided to stop playing rugby and take up running instead, and just going to the gym and training for enjoyment more than anything. It gave me a lot more flexibility, and yeah, I suppose it's led me to here. Otherwise, I probably still would have been playing mediocre rugby and just getting pissed every weekend. So I'm quite glad I had that in some ways. And then the last one was
Highlight from your
uh,
life.
highlight from my life in general, or just this year.
You choose.
Like, I'll make it easier for myself. I'll say this year, and it's got to be the Elite 15. Like it's just been that was a great end to a great year. I'd say it was fantastic, and just the whole experience, and to have my people that were very close to me there as well was awesome. I really want to do it again. Can't wait for the next one. Yeah.
Is that the plan? You're going to go to Phoenix, presuming you qualify?
Well, I think there's correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's no more races, and I think I'm still within the 15. So if that is the case, then I 100% will be going to Phoenix. That's the plan. Goal is to qualify for Worlds there. Um, but yeah, man, that's the plan for the near future at least.
Okay, awesome. All right. Well, this has been fantastic. Thank you. Um, is there anything else I should have asked? And then also, like, if people want to follow you, find out more about you, your coaching, everything you're doing, where should they go?
Um, Before I said that, I'd like to say thank you, Greg, because I think I and many other people actually adore your podcast, and I love that the sort of range of guests that you have on, that you don't just interview people within the Hyrox space, but you've introduced me to so many different people, and like breadths of knowledge is just incredible. So I'm incredibly thankful for that, and I'm sure many other people are as well. So I'd like to say thank you.
Thank you.
Um,
Appreciate it.
yeah, no worries. Yeah, if people want to follow me, I'm on Instagram at Josh.Van Zeeland. I do a bit on YouTube as well now, just Josh Van Zeeland. Unfortunately, I am a coach, but I'm pretty much at capacity at the moment, so I'm happy with my little pool of athletes. Don't want to spread myself too thin. But yeah, that's about it.
All right. Amazing. Well, this has been fantastic. Excited to see what you can continue to do in the sport.